Devildriver with Trust No One. I am coverkillernation, and I'm currently wearing a shirt without sleeves because it's kinda hot in here. Yeah, we're entering into that season, and of course, for the optimal acoustic experience, there's no fans, there's no AC, it's a lovely day in the neighborhood. So, the last time we talked about Devildriver was 3 years ago with Winter Kills, and this is actually the longest gap between albums that the band has experienced. And one of the principal reasons why that was the case is because Dez ended up hooking up and doing another Cold Chamber album, which we did talk about. So Devildriver comes back, they return, and many storylines can actually be painted through Trust No One. For one of their guitar players said that this is the album he's been clamoring to record for 12 years, which suggests a bit of a shift in tone, perhaps. And also, it should be noted that just about every one of their albums, with the exception of one, has actually led to a subsequent jump in the Billboard Top 200, which indicates that the band is still selling relatively well. And I think that Trust No One is an album that has the opportunity to continue that trend. Why is that, you might add? Well, let's get right deep into it. From Testimony of Truth, which is the very first cutoff of this disc, you kind of notice something that's a little bit different about this album. While it does still have some of that Devildriver charm, some of that melodic death metal that is intermixed with some groove that gives Devildriver their signature punch, something about this feels a little bit heavier, a little bit more raw, somewhat savage as opposed to some of their elder material, which also had some bite to it, but this one feels like it has a little bit more of that direct punch to it. It's not one that's dilly-dallying around. And it also feels a little bit more resemblant to what some folks out there may call true metal, as opposed to what they may dispel Devildriver as, foolishly, which would be false metal. Because that argument is timeless and ageless and everybody loves it. Really, it's kind of annoying. Cut it out. But in reality, this is just a way that that melody and that groove come together in order to forge something that feels a little bit fresh. It feels like something that Devildriver is experimenting a bit with. Either that, or they're looking at a heavier tone to add with those grooves, to add with those hooks, in order to amplify what they have already been able to previously accomplish. And it's something that resonates almost instantaneously through the very first cut. Going into Bad Deeds in My Night Sky, you start to wonder if perhaps the first track was a one-off and are quickly met with the same. You're quickly met with similar ideas with even more energy. So now you're kind of left in a scenario where you recognize that Trust No One is perhaps something that should be a metaphor for the band, because if you were expecting an album that was just like Winter Kills, then you really shouldn't have trusted them, because they did something that's a little bit better, a little bit more grand. Some magnificence is really being blessed upon us through Devildriver with this album, and it's been done by a simple change of just having a little bit more of a direct approach. And that's really showcased considering on this 10-track standard album, it's only one that barely pushes the 40-minute mark, as opposed to their last couple, which have had runtimes of over 50 minutes to 55 minutes, and at times, based off of that longer runtime, feel like they kind of stumble over themselves and get a little bit bland. However, with an album of this variety, it has that nice, soft, sort of middle-of-the-road runtime where it doesn't feel like it's too short, where you're clamoring for more, which some people actually really like. They think that that's the marking of a complete album. If an album leaves you thirsting for more, it doesn't matter how long it is, it's good. I kind of disagree with that. There's definitely something to be said where maybe a band was not ambitious enough to throw more out there on the table. They instead just sort of stuck with where they were comfortable instead of taking a couple of risks. I feel that this album was exactly what the band really wanted to do. The reflection was exactly where they wanted to be. There's 2 bonus cuts that are available on the deluxe version of this disc that push the runtime to over 50 minutes, but honestly, even with the addition of those 2, it doesn't feel as bogged down. I wonder why that is. And I think the reason for it is that direct songwriting approach really fits into Devildriver's wheelhouse a little bit better. It's something where going within this style and having a lot more of sort of maybe a melodic thrash influence on some tracks, especially seen in track number 10, which is entitled For What It's Worth, and a couple of other cuts on the second half of this disc, really aids them in not only pushing time, but also giving them more options with where they go creatively with these tracks. It sort of opens up the composition for them. And really, these are approaches that Devildriver has used sort of periodically in the past, but this is one where it seems like it was more of a center point, something that was seen as more necessary for this disc, and it was a decision that was fairly well conceived and very well executed. Overall, this album can be a bit surprising to those who have always been sort of tit or tat based around their love or hate of Devildriver. If you're kind of middle of the road with this band, this is an album to check out, definitely, considering I feel it's one of the stronger discs that they have in their catalog, which is growing and becoming quite extensive. They've been around since the first part of the 2000s. I would probably give this album an 82 out of 100. I love the solid and direct approach. This is an album that's actually fairly easy to listen to from front to back, and that gives it a sincere advantage over some of its predecessors, where by the time you are getting closer and closer to the end, you're kind of rushing the experience along if you feel yourself getting a little bit bored. Out of their more recent works, this is the one that really shines forth, and I feel that that option where this is the album that their guitar player's been wanting to really perform for 12 years certainly caused an extremely inspired performance, considering he certainly shines throughout the entirety of this disc. It's almost like he feels a bit reinvigorated, and perhaps the 3-year wait was a big beneficial helper for this group, as opposed to going right back into the studio and getting something out instantaneously. I'm not saying that every band should really follow that formula, but this is something where Devildriver had been doing that for so long that that extended gap, really, it feels like they regrouped very well, and it created and crafted a very good release. But I want to know what you guys think about Trust No One by Devildriver. Let me know in the comments below. If you are a fan of this band, if you're a fan of heavy metal, and you have not subscribed to coverkillernation yet, this is definitely the time to do so. We're talking about a lot of different music this weekend. We've already spoken about the new one from Gorguts, and we're going to be talking about albums from bands such as Avatar, Hatebreed, Destruction, Grand Magus, just to name a few of the others that are on the docket for this weekend. So you're definitely not going to want to miss them. I'm coverkillernation, the aforementioned, and I will speak to you guys next time. Take care.